The iron mind, why controlling your mind, is the first battle. Every man must win. Right now, at this very moment, there is a war being fought over you, not around you, over you. And the battlefield is not your bank account, not your relationship, not your career, not your neighborhood. It is 6 inches between your ears, your mind. And here is what nobody is telling men in this generation clearly enough. If you lose that battle, you lose everything else automatically. Because the man who does not control his own mind does not control his own life. Somebody else does. Something else does. And you will spend your entire existence moving in directions that were chosen for you while believing you are making your own decisions. Tonight, I am going to talk about the one thing that separates the men who build something real from the men who spend their whole lives wondering why nothing ever changes. It is not talent. It is not opportunity. It is not money or connections or luck. It is the mind, the iron mind. The mind that has been tested, forged, and trained to govern itself regardless of what the world throws at it. And by the end of this conversation, you are going to understand exactly what it costs to build one and why everything you are trying to become depends on it. Let me start with something that most men have never had anyone say to them plainly. Glory and pain are linked. Not sometimes, always. There has never been a man in the history of this world who built something real without going through something real first. The two are not opposites. They are the same road. And the men who spend their lives trying to find a path to the glory that avoids the pain always end up with neither. Because God did not design the process of becoming a man to be comfortable. He designed it to be forging. Fire does not destroy metal. It reveals what the metal is actually made of. And the pain you are going through right now, the difficulty, the struggle, the season that feels like it has no end, is not evidence that something is wrong with your life. It is evidence that something is being built in it. The question is not whether the fire is coming. The fire is always coming. The question is whether you are going to let it forge you or break you. And the answer to that question lives entirely in the mind. Now let me tell you something about the world you are living in that you need to understand clearly before anything else in this conversation makes full sense. This world is not neutral ground. Ephesians 6:12 says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. You are living on enemy turf. And the enemy's primary strategy has never been to destroy a man physically. Physical destruction is obvious. A man can see it coming and respond to it. The enemy's most effective weapon has always been subtler than that. Get inside a man's mind. Make him doubt who he is. Make him misread his pain as failure. Make him interpret the hard season as evidence that he is on the wrong path, instead of evidence that he is being prepared for the right one. If the enemy can control how a man thinks, he never needs to fight him directly. The man defeats himself. He quits. He drifts. He sedates himself with distraction and comfort and never becomes the threat to darkness that his full potential represents. You are going to fight regardless. Every man alive is fighting something. The only question is whether you are fighting yourself, losing ground to your own undisciplined mind, or whether you are fighting the system that is trying to suppress you from becoming the full version of who God created you to be. You are going to be in the fight either way, so you might as well position yourself to win it. And here is the thing that the culture in this generation will never tell you. The only school that produces a real man is adversity, not comfort. Not convenience, not a life where everything came easily and nothing was ever required of him. A man who has lived a comfortable life, who has never failed at something that mattered, who has never been rejected, never been betrayed, never had something he built fall apart in his hands, never stood in a place where he genuinely did not know how he was going to make it through. That man has never been tested. And an untested man is not a man. He is a boy in a man's body with no idea what he's actually made of, because the conditions that would have revealed it never arrived. Every culture that existed before this one understood this. There was always a moment, a structured, intentional, communal rite of passage, where a boy was pushed past his own limits, confirmed and declared a man by the men who came before him. That moment told him who he was, what he had proven himself capable of, what was now expected of him. We removed that, and we replaced it with nothing. Which is exactly why you have men in their 30s still operating on boy psychology, still led by their feelings, still looking for the shortcut, still crumbling under pressure that a man who had been properly forged would absorb without breaking. The absence of that testing is not just a cultural loss, it is a generational crisis. And the men watching this right now are going to have to forge themselves because the structure that was supposed to do it for them no longer exists. Now let me talk about trauma, because this is where most men are sitting right now and nobody is framing it correctly for them. Most men carry trauma like a wound that never healed. Something that happened to them that they could never fully process, never fully understand, and never fully move beyond. And the culture will tell you that trauma is damage, that it defines what you can and cannot become, that the right response to it is to manage it, medicate it, and lower your expectations accordingly. I am going to tell you something different. Trauma, framed correctly, is not damage. It is raw material. A man who has been through something real and who takes the time to actually sit with it, analyze it, understand what it taught him about himself and about the world, and extract every piece of wisdom it contains. That man comes out the other side of that process as one of the most dangerous and capable men alive, because he knows things that comfortable men do not know. He has been to places that untested men have never been. He has watched himself under pressure and come back with a clear picture of what he is made of. His trauma became his curriculum, and the degree it awarded him is the kind that cannot be faked or purchased. It was paid for in something real. But here is what determines whether trauma builds you or destroys you: what you do with the loss. Because a loss is only a loss if you walk away from it without extracting what it was trying to teach you. If you get fired and spend 6 months bitter about it, without ever asking yourself honestly what role you played in that outcome, you did not just lose the job. You lost the lesson. And God will let a man cycle through the same painful season over and over again until he finally develops what that season was designed to produce in him. The man who keeps ending up in the same broken relationship pattern year after year is not unlucky. He is unlearned. He never sat still long enough after the last one ended to ask the hard question: where did I go wrong? What do I need to fix before I bring myself into the next thing? What is this trying to build in me? The cycle breaks the moment a man stops running from the question and starts sitting with it long enough to hear the answer. Every loss you have ever taken has something in it that was trying to make you better. The question is whether you're going to collect what it left for you or leave it on the floor and keep moving. And that brings me to something that most men in this generation are not doing nearly enough of: processing, sitting with themselves, getting quiet. Men are terrified of silence, terrified of solitude. They jump from relationship to relationship, from distraction to distraction, from one woman to the next, without ever taking 30 minutes in a day to sit with themselves and ask what is actually going on inside of them. And I want to be clear about what I mean by this, because this is not a call to overthinking or paralysis. I'm talking about something practical. Before you react to something, process it. Something goes wrong in your relationship, something breaks in your business, something catches you off guard at work. Before you respond emotionally, before you do something you cannot undo, sit with it. Study yourself. Read yourself like a book. Figure out what you are actually feeling, why you are feeling it, and what the right response is versus what the emotional response is. When you first start doing this, it is going to feel slow. Decisions that used to take you a split second are going to take longer because you are interrupting a pattern that your brain has been running automatically for years. That is fine. That slowness is not weakness. It is the beginning of mastery. Because the more you practice processing, the faster it gets, and eventually you reach a point where that self-regulation happens almost automatically, where you can read a situation clearly, govern your response, and make the right call, even when everything around you is pushing you toward the wrong one. That is the iron mind in operation. Now let me talk about the physical piece, because it connects directly to everything I have been saying about the mind, and most men underestimate it. If you are not doing some form of physical training right now, you are leaving one of the most powerful tools for mental development completely unused. The gym, or whatever form of physical work you choose, is not just about how you look. It is about what it does to how you think. When a man commits to building his body, he is doing something that his mind pays attention to. He is proving to himself every single day that he can do hard things, that he can show up when he does not want to, that he can push past what is comfortable, and that proof accumulates. It builds a self-concept that transfers into every other area of his life. A man who has been consistently training does not just look different. He carries himself differently. There is a presence about him, not arrogance, grit. Something in how he stands in a room that communicates without words, that he is not someone who folds easily. Men who are operating at a high level recognize it immediately. And it starts in the gym, but it does not stay there. It moves into how he approaches his finances, how he leads his household, how he handles adversity, how he governs his mind under pressure. The gym is the lowest hanging fruit available to a man right now. It is the most accessible place to start proving to yourself that you are capable of becoming who you were created to be. Start there, and watch how everything else starts to shift. Now let me address the feelings question directly, because this is one of the arms of the octopus, and it is one of the most effective ones. The culture is telling men they need to be more in touch with their feelings, more emotional, more willing to be led by how they feel in any given moment. And what that produces is a generation of men who cannot function when the feeling is wrong, who do not go to the gym because they do not feel like it, who do not go to work with full effort because something is bothering them, who make major life decisions based on what feels right in the moment instead of what their covenant, their mission, and their God are pointing them toward. A man is not supposed to have no feelings. A man is supposed to govern his feelings. There is a massive difference between those two things. You feel everything. You process everything. You understand what is happening inside of you, and then you do what needs to be done regardless of whether the feeling is cooperating. Not because feelings do not matter, because your mission matters more than your mood. And the man who has trained himself to move, regardless of how he feels, who has built the discipline to show up to the hard thing even when everything inside of him is pushing back against it, that man is essentially unbeatable. Because the world's primary weapon against him, the emotional manipulation, the discouragement, the pressure, has nothing to grab onto. He feels it and keeps moving anyway. Let me tell you about the shortcut, because this is where so many men destroy the very time they are trying to protect. Men are always looking for the quick way, how to get in shape fast, how to make money fast, how to skip the process and arrive at the result without paying the full cost. And I understand the impulse. The process is hard, the timeline is long, the grind is real, and it does not always feel like it is moving fast enough. But here is what the shortcut actually costs. Time, the most expensive resource a man has, because the shortcut either sends you backwards or sideways. The man who tries to make money the fast, illegal way ends up spending years in a cell watching his actual life pass by on the outside, while the time he can never get back disappears one day at a time. The man who tries to get the relationship result without doing the work on himself ends up in the same broken dynamic again, with a different face across the table. Every shortcut is borrowing against time you cannot afford to lose. You are going to pay either way. You pay now by doing the hard work, the slow, consistent grinding, the delayed gratification that eventually compounds into everything you are trying to build. Or you pay later with the most expensive currency available to a man, the years of his life. Pay now. It is the only logical option. Here is something I want every man watching this to understand about legacy and why it is the thing that keeps a man grounded when success finally arrives. Because here is what is going to happen. You are going to do the work. You are going to build the mind. You are going to push through the pain and the loss and the hard seasons, and at some point things are going to start working. Resources are going to start coming. Recognition is going to start arriving, and when it does, pride is going to try to move into the space that the humility used to occupy. And the only antidote to that drift is knowing clearly who you are building for. Not yourself, your kids, your family, the generation that is going to stand on what you built and reach higher because of what you sacrificed for them. Solomon had everything. Every resource, every pleasure, every achievement a man could accumulate in a lifetime. And at the end of all of it, he sat down and called it vanity. Not because it was worthless, but because he was building for himself. And everything built only for yourself eventually feels empty because you were designed to build for something bigger than yourself. The man who knows his why, who works every day knowing that his kids are watching, that his legacy is being constructed in real time, that the generation coming after him is going to inherit either a foundation or a void, depending on what he does with his years. That man never loses the fire. He has something to fight for that is bigger than his own comfort or his own recognition. And that is what keeps a man grounded when the pride tries to move in. You are not building for the applause. You are building for the people who depend on what you become. And let me say this to close, because it is the thing I want every man who is watching this to carry with him. Right now, in this world, there is a calling going out. Not loud. Not on the channel everyone is tuned to. More like an echo. Picture a man standing in the middle of everything the world is throwing at him. The noise, the screens, the distraction, the pressure, the constant pull in 100 different directions. And somewhere underneath all of that, if he were to get completely still, completely quiet, he would hear something. It is not demanding. It is not loud. It is just there, like an echo bouncing off the walls of who he was always supposed to be, waiting for him to get quiet enough to receive it. That is the calling. It has always been there. The enemy's only job has always been to make enough noise that a man never gets still long enough to hear it. But some men do get still. Some men do get quiet. And when they hear that echo, they know immediately that it is the truest thing they have ever encountered. That is what this page is. That is what this conversation is. A signal going out to the men who are ready to tune in. Calling all masculine men, calling all masculine men. You are not alone. The voice is here. Get quiet enough to hear it, and then do the work to become what it is calling you to be. Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It starts there. It always starts there. Control the mind, forge it in the fire, govern the feelings. Extract the lesson from every loss. Do the work without looking for the shortcut. Build for the generation that comes after you. And refuse to let the noise of this world drown out the echo of who God created you to be. Walk with God while you work for the crown. When he crowns you king, tell the world of the truth you found. That's king-level mindset. Kings don't beg. Kings don't bow. Kings build.